All right. Welcome to the North Fork Experience, the podcast where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals and businesses shaping our communities and industries. I'm your host, Kirk Hays, and today we have a realtor who brings over 25 years of experience in customer service and business leadership, blending operational excellence with a deep commitment to family values. Please welcome John Cornely. John, it's fantastic to have you. Let's dive right into your North Fork experience here. You spent over 13 years at the Home Depot, progressing from order fulfillment associate to a store manager, overseeing large operations and teams. How did that management and operational skills you developed in high volume retail translate into your current success in real estate?
Kirk, thanks. That's a great question. Just to back up a tad, I actually started at the Home Depot as a part-time cashier. So I walked in the door, just looking for a part-time job. It was basically a minimum wage job back then. This was 2010, and I started at $7.10 an hour. It was a second job for me. I was just trying to make ends meet, and I think a lot of, experience at the Home Depot, there's one part of the experience, which is like your job skills that you pick up working every day, whatever the role was, cashier, order fulfillment associate, like you said, department supervisor, assistant manager, and eventually a store manager for 7 years. You pick up a lot of business skills in that process. But I think the experience itself, kind of finding in yourself what it takes to be successful, to go from a part-time cashier to a store manager in that world was kind of viewed as like a major accomplishment. And it certainly was. What do I mean is it takes an exceptional, will to do something like that, and I
Yeah,
think
yep.
I thought a lot about that. When I left Home Depot, I wanted to make sure I wasn't starting over, so I'm not starting from nothing. I had built a very strong foundation of skills there. So I think the main things, looking back, that I learned there that benefit me now. Number one, customer service. So in retail generally, but especially the culture of that company, Home Depot, is one of customer service, where, the old adage, the customer comes first. Well, that isn't something we said a lot. It was more an obsession with the customer.
Uh-huh.
The customer was really all that mattered, because the customer is why we exist, to serve them. And I think even more so in my career now, that's true. I live and breathe for my clients. Everything I do, I'm a fiduciary. I'm the person that is, the client is the boss. Like if you think about, you know, the real estate transaction as like a crew on a ship, there's a lot of people, different people involved, from the agent, the client, the mortgage lender, the title company, and then you get the other side involved, and there's a whole crew of people involved, and the client is the captain, but I, as the agent, am kind of like the first mate, and the navigator. The captain is going to steer the ship and make the decisions, but I gotta be the one pointing out the iceberg ahead, if you know what
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
And you learn that. I think it's an important skill. Like if you work in customer service, treat it that way. I mean, I think a lot of times we go to work and we're kind of, resentful of the experience, almost like, I got to take care of these customers, or like, even if we give great customer service, it's kind of out of, from a place of necessity. I don't think I even appreciated it for what it was when I was learning it, because it's a valuable skill. If you can learn uh, how to stand in front of a person and listen attentively to what they're going through, analyze the problem, and come up with creative solutions, and do it with a smile on your face, and
Yeah,
while
absolutely.
really making that person feel good, that's a valuable skill. Not everybody can do that.
Yep. Yeah,
I think a lot of, yeah, go ahead,
go
Kirk.
ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
I,
you off
I
there.
would know. I was just going to say, a lot of people, I think, aren't cut out for it.
Yeah. Yeah, communication is so important in your line of work there, and it's shows really your hard work and your ability to communicate. That you've worked up through the ranks at Home Depot there, and I'm sure you dealt with quite a few different people along the way, and that process was really vital to you to what you're doing now, and it's a
Yeah,
great segue into the next question here because you've stated customer service is a cornerstone of your business.
yeah,
What is the single
absolutely.
most important lesson about customer service that you learned in retail that you can now apply to daily in the home buying process?
Well, that's a great question. So the single most valuable lesson about customer service, I would say the power of first impressions. You know, when you're standing in front of a customer, you're standing in front of a client, especially in this business, in real estate, you really only get one shot at the relationship. In retail, it was a thing where, your customer, you're going to spend 5 minutes with them and you may never see them again. And, that 5 minutes is all that's how they're going to know you forever, and you're putting on this uniform, or in my case, you're putting on an orange apron and you're representing this company. You're the face of the company. So that first impression is crucial. The way you greet, like we in customer service, that's the first and one of the most important things is greeting the customer, because it's a first impression. It opens the door for them. It puts the onus where it should be on us to initiate kind of the relationship and the conversation. So coming into real estate, I can tell you, like I've had to learn some tough lessons. Every meeting with a client is a job interview.
Yeah. Yep.
I work for my clients, and then we go to settlement, and we high five, and now I'm unemployed again. So when I meet that client, I'm interviewing for a job, and I have to make sure that that client understands what I stand for within the first like 2 or 3 minutes of that conversation, because
Yeah.
that's likely to be my only chance.
Yep. And I can see how important that is. So, like, I'm sure you can't close a deal in that first impression, but you can certainly miss out on the chance at closing a deal if that first impression goes the wrong way. So I can see the real value in that and how important that is.
Absolutely.
So you emphasize integrity, honesty, and communication as key values. How do you ensure these high standards are consistently met, especially when navigating the inevitable stresses and complexities of a real estate transaction?
Yeah, well, I think it takes focus and effort. It takes daily commitment. So every day, I mean, I have a routine that I think all top performers are going to have a routine that kind of helps them kind of harness their energy daily into their daily activities. Like I'm not just out here flying by the seat of my pants. So I have, whether it's daily affirmations or just a recentering around my core values. It might be in my business plan, my mission statement, but every day it just takes a refocus back to that. Why am I here? Like, what is my
Uh-huh.
purpose today? So I have to remind myself every day that, my purpose is to take great care of my clients and to treat interaction with a client like I'm helping a family member. That's the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
I think about it.
Yeah, and that's so critical. You mentioned too a little bit, your daily routine, and that becomes a little harder when you're not working for a corporation, basically like Home Depot too. You got to be self-driven to do that too, and that's an important aspect of what you're doing there.
Well, if I could just comment on that, Kirk, you notice things as time goes on, and different experiences, you notice certain patterns, right? Have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule?
I have, yep.
Yeah, so it pretty much applies to everything, and like one of the ways that I've seen it, front and center is in my career, not just in retail, even before that, like my whole kind of I guess my whole career in front of customers, or even just working with diverse groups or working with, large groups of people. You notice that 20% of the workforce is generating 80% of the value, right? So, like you said, how it takes a special person, I think about it often. Like if you were like me and you're working in a retail store, if you're working at a fast food joint, if you're working in a restaurant, and you're working with a large group of people, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to know whether you're part of the 20% that's contributing the 80%, or whether you're the part of the other 80%, right?
Yeah.
If you're part of that 20% that's pulling basically pulling the truck, you probably have more options than you think, because you're likely undervalued. One thing that I like to do is reach out to people that I used to work with, the people that were like top performers that worked for me, and like put a bug in their ear about getting into business for themselves. Like if you
Uh-huh.
worked as hard for yourself as you do for whatever the company is, you would be successful.
You
It's
can be
like
successful.
it's just a risk, there's risk involved, but you're the one that you should be taking that risk.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. That's great advice too. And yeah, that 80-20 rule does come up in a lot of areas. So it's pretty interesting that you mentioned that because it really does see it once you think about it. You can see it in a lot of
Yeah.
places. So you worked as an associate agent at Redfin before moving to Keller Williams.
Yeah.
How did your experience at Redfin, which is pretty technology driven, influence your current approach to market analysis and client service at Keller Williams?
Oh, that's a great question, Kirk. Yeah, like you said, Redfin they are a tech company. If you ask them, they're a tech company that happens to also be a full service real estate brokerage.
Hmm.
It's pretty unique in the world of real estate for a few different reasons. I mean, they have competitors. If you think about Redfin's competitors, you got Realtor.com, Homes.com, Zillow, right? The difference, if you put all those kind of in one category, the difference, Redfin stands out because it has, as opposed to just partnering with other brokers and working on referral relationships like Zillow, for example. Zillow, if you click on the button on the Zillow website or the Zillow listing and say you want to see this property, it's going to connect you with whoever paid for that lead. It could be me, John, that works for Keller Williams. It could be, a Remax agent. It could be a Berkshire Hathaway agent or whatever the case may be. Whoever's paying for that lead, they're not like associated in any other way with Zillow other than the fact that they're paying for those leads.
Huh?
Same thing with Realtor.com. Same thing for Homes.com. Redfin's a little different because Redfin has employees. They hire their own agents.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's two types of agents at Redfin. There's the lead agent, which is a full-time W-2 employee, which is really not common. It's not common at all in real estate.
Unique,
We're
yeah, for
almost
sure.
always 1099 self-employed. So in Redfin, they have these employees, and then you have associate agents like I was, which are 1099 contractors. A lot of us were part-time. It was a completely different way of doing real estate. We basically got paid per event, you would call it. Mainly what I did was show houses. Instead of going, like I was describing, going in front of a client and kind of interviewing for the business and trying to get them to commit to working with me,
Uh-huh.
they've already made a commitment to Redfin. I'm representing Redfin and I'm helping them for a short period of time, in most cases just showing a house. So I'm with them for 30 minutes. I show them the house. I take my notes. We get done. I give them great customer service. That's the main thing I was doing. I send my notes over to their lead agent and I'm done with that client and I get paid a flat fee for showing that house. So it's a very different than what I do now. I didn't
Yeah,
have
it's
to write
definitely
contracts. Yeah. I
very
didn't have to
unique.
negotiate. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't involved in any of that. So,
Uh-huh.
so it was limited in one way, right? I didn't get exposure to any of that, like the finer kind of things in real estate, like, getting interviewing for business, doing listing presentations, listing homes, negotiating contracts, going to settlement, all the things I do now on a regular basis. I had no exposure to that. However, I got a lot of exposure to some other aspects, like showing homes. I showed over 400 homes in a year and a half that I was with Redfin. There's
Yeah,
not a lot of
that's a
agents that could
big
say
deal.
that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So for me, this was my first gig in real estate, and I was still working full time as a store manager for Home Depot at the time. And I was showing houses for Redfin on my days off. And it worked kind of like Uber, where like you set your availability in the phone and you set a service area. And if a client hits that button on the Redfin
Huh?
site and the house is in your service area and you're available, they
You
put it
can
on your calendar, right? And then I study the house, I go give great customer service, I get paid my flat fee, and that was that. So I guess what I took away from it, I got a lot of, number one, I got a lot of exposure to the buyer. I worked over 200 of Redfin's clients. I helped view homes. So I got to kind of experience through their eyes. I see what buyers are looking for. I see how they shop. I see what kind of questions they're asking. I got really great exposure to my local market. Like I said, over 400 homes in 18 months. And through this was 2020, 2021 and 2022. So they're pretty
Mm-hmm.
interesting years in real
Yeah,
estate.
absolutely.
Not a lot of inventory. If it was on the market, I probably saw it,
Huh.
right, in that period of time. So I'm very grateful for my experience I had with Redfin because I really do think it made my transition when I eventually left the retail world and went full time in the real estate as a regular agent like I did now. I wasn't starting from nothing. I had a lot of great experience. I already had exposure to the market. I already knew how buyers shopped for houses. I already knew the lingo, and I already met a lot of great agents out there from networking in my time with them.
Yeah, that's a lot of great info, and I can see those, especially showing all those houses, how that would, improve your skills so fast. And again, it's communicating with buyers and sellers then too. So it's all about that building that skill set for sure. And that's a great segue into the next question too. You serve a wide area, including Collegeville and Wayne. How do you maintain
Mm.
a deep understanding of the market nuances across these diverse communities to provide personalized service tailored to meet specific client goals?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of two things. I would say number one, you have to be a student of the market. And I think this is something, especially being kind of I'm still pretty new. I've had my real estate license for 4 years.
Uh huh.
I've been doing it full time for 2.5 years. So by real estate standards, that's pretty new. There's agents I work with that have been 30, 40 years in the business. And I think one of the benefits of being a newer agent is I'm really hungry for that knowledge. I don't take it for granted. I don't just assume I know the market. I study it daily. So every day I'm going into the MLS and I'm looking at what's on the market, especially my logo. I know you mentioned Collegeville. Skipback is really that's where I live. That's where I spend most of my time marketing and studying is Skipback specifically, Skipback Township. I always know what's on the market in Skipback. You ask me any day of the week, how many homes are on the market in
Mm-hmm.
Skipback. I can tell you, like today, there's 19. There's
Yeah.
19 homes on the market, 12 new construction. There's five 55 plus and two detached homes. So you have to be a student. So that's the one thing. And the second thing I think is more, it's a tougher one. I think it's just a ability. It's a talent, to see things, to kind of, it's an innate kind of thing, like if you mentioned two areas, Collegeville and Wayne, they're very similar, but a keen eye can spot the differences. And it's not always something I think that you can train somebody to do. I think if you're an attentive student, you have a better chance of figuring it out. But I do think it kind of takes a little bit of an intangible skill there.
Yeah, I think, having spent some time in that area, it seemed like it was growing up pretty fast when I was there. And you can really see it takes some time, and effort to see the nuances of each of those specific areas that you're in out
Yeah,
there. So, and that's,
absolutely.
it can really separate people that are successful from the ones that are unsuccessful, where, being able to put that effort into the market and really understand what's going on there. So, switching gears a little bit, family's clearly at the heart of everything you do. How does your commitment to creating lasting memories with your wife and three daughters influence your professional drive and your approach to helping clients find their dream home?
No, that's great. I'm glad you asked that because I don't know, it's hard for me to think of my life outside of, like separate the family from that. It's so important to me. It's like that's not even the right important to me. It's the reason I do everything that I do
Yeah, yep.
is for my family. And I'm committed to being present while I do it. I think for years I made a lot of excuses. And maybe it was just I was doing what I had to do, or at least I was doing what I felt I had to do.
Yep.
For a long time, I had a job that was very demanding, not just of my time, but of my kind of mental focus and
Yep.
energy. And, I was on call and, these stores I was running were an hour or more away from my home. So between, the 11-hour workday and the hour plus commute each way, when my kids were small, there were many a day where, I left the house to go to work before they woke up and I got home after they were in bed,
Yeah, yep.
and I got through that by telling myself I was doing what I had to do.
Uh-huh.
But over time, I guess I was able to step back mentally, and I reached a point where I said, you know what, my kid's childhood is going to be gone before I even know it. I'm not going to let that happen. I said, I need a change. And that's
Yep,
when I
absolutely.
talked to my wife, and it's actually was her idea. She'll take all the credit if you ask her.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's
for sure.
totally true. She told me to get into real estate. When we were shopping for our house back in 2016, I got really into it, and she saw that interest and that kind of ability. And I think she saw it in me before I ever saw it in myself. And she's the one that pushed. She told me at the time I should get into real estate, and I laughed it off. I was like, yeah, right. Like, full commission. Like, we got a family to feed. I can't. I need a paycheck every 2 weeks. And now here we were, 5, 6 years later, and she made that suggestion again, or pushed me in that direction again, and it was the right time. And I thought it out. I said, all right, well, I have to do it the right way because I'm not going to, and it's going to be a short term sacrifice. I said,
Absolutely.
First, I had to make sure I insulated myself, financially. So I had a year's worth of savings aside that could pay my every bill, mortgage, food, grocery, shopping, everything. I knew if I didn't make a penny for a year, I would be okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I had that took me 18 months to get there. And what we said was we were going to know after 6 months if it was going to work or not. And then if
Mm-hmm.
after 6 months, if it wasn't going to work, now I got 6 more months to find a job in another big box. I'd be
Yeah.
knocking on
Yep.
a Walmart store or Target or Lowe's or whatever the case may be. But also I told her the first couple of years we're going to, trust me. I'm going to have to, it's not going to be like this forever, but there's going to be a lot of late nights. There's going to be, I'm used to working weekends and nights and, in retail, and now showing houses is similar, right? Especially
Yeah.
working with buyers. But fortunately, I always kept the family at kind of the center of the entire plans. As number one, I always look for the time where I could find it. So even now, now I'm 2.5 years in. I had a really good year last year in 2025, while still making time for family. I don't miss sporting events. I was a homeroom parent for my first grader. Actually, she was in fourth grade. My fourth grader. I was a homeroom parent. I volunteer at a food bank every Friday morning, so I'm making time for the things that are important to me, and I'm working around that.
Yep. Yep.
And by the as things, if my systems kind of got sharper with experience, I was able to kind of quickly get to where this year it's not something I really stress about, making time for the family. It's more like I have to make time for the business. I'm with
Yep.
my family, and I have to make sure that the danger is that we get comfortable and we stop spending the appropriate amount of time, like looking for new business or nurturing our clients. So it's never a consideration for me to kind of cut the family time. Like, not that we don't have to be creative, like we have to, like I said, I might not be able to be home for dinner every single night, because I might have a showing late at night or whatever. But if I want to go on the field trip with my second grader, on a Wednesday morning, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think really from being there for my family, it's the center of what I do. So there's not a lot of compromising to be done there. And then at the same time, about helping clients find their dream home. I'm upfront about this when I meet with, in particular, buyers. Like in the real estate world, as a full service real estate agent like me, you're mainly working with buyers and sellers. Sometimes they're doing both, but you're normally doing one thing at a time. Sellers, generally, it's not as much of an issue. When you list a home, it's a type of skill set, number one, and it's also it's not going to be as demanding of your flexible time. Right? If I have a listing, I can pick when I want to do the open house. If 10 people want to see it, their agents generally are going to show the property. I might be taking phone calls at night and that kind of thing, but it's not running me around the way that when I'm committed to a buyer, the way that does. Buyer, generally, they're going to be looking at homes when they're not working. So it's like in
Yep.
evenings, it's on weekends and things like that. So in particular with my buyers, when I sit down with them for a buyer consultation or I get on a Zoom like this, I'm upfront, that I'm a family man. I show them the picture of my family and I say, look, my family is the reason I do what I do. And a lot of times I'm talking to them and they have similar reasons for doing what they're doing, like whether
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
looking for a bigger house or the location. A lot of times it's centered around the family. So I know they relate to that. Now, that being said, when I take you on as a client, like I'm making a commitment to you. So every moment I'm spending with you, obviously I'm not spending that with my family. That's fine. They fully support what I do. My kids love what I do. My wife pushed me into real estate. It's a family business and it's a family passion of ours. That being said, there might be times I don't answer your text message right away. There's some agents that tell clients, 24/7, call me
Yeah.
whenever, I'll answer it. I don't do that. I'm not going to overcommit like that. I said, number one, I could be with my family, and that could be just important family time. And I promise you, I will get back to you. Number two, I could be with another client. Like if I'm with you showing you a house, you don't want me on my phone answering text messages and answering calls. I'm going to give my other clients the same kind of attention. So the point is, if you send me a text message and I don't answer right away, don't think, I forgot about you or fell to the face of the earth. I'm going to get back to you as quickly
Yep.
as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, that all hits close to home to me. A little background on me: I spent over 10 years as an engineer in the oil and gas industry. So it was
Okay.
I wouldn't want to tell you how many 100-hour plus work weeks I've worked, and you get a call at 2 a.m. and you drive 6 hours to Southern West Virginia or something to help fix a problem, stuff like that. But yeah, I got two young kids at home, so yeah, trying
How
to
old are your
avoid that.
kids?
I got a 4-year-old and one just turned 2 a couple days ago, so
Oh my
it's chaotic.
goodness.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, hey, we'll get back on track here a little bit. As a former store manager, you had to manage inventory, logistics, and staff. What is one operational process you use in your real estate business today that you borrowed directly from your time managing large retail operations?
Yeah, great question. I'm so thankful for my time, especially as an operations manager, which I did. That was about 3 years. I was an operations manager, and then my 7 years as a store manager. So most of my time with the company, I was directly responsible for the P&L
Mm-hmm.
for the store. So managing a profit and loss, managing expenses, tracking expenses has helped me, like, because a lot of agents struggle with that. A lot of self-employed people, business people struggle with that, the financial management side of it. And I feel like I came into this industry with strong financial management skills that I definitely learned that. I mean, thank you to my former company, because I had a lot of training in that area, and it's stuff that I had no exposure to previously, because I have systems in place like that for managing my expenses and my funds in, you know, where I'm able to block out the time, execute it on a weekly basis, and stay on top of it. And those are definitely skills I learned in the retail business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to be able to, it's not the same business, but those skills cross reference and you can pull on that past experience and really help you move forward and be successful there. So that's very useful for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So looking ahead, what key trends or shifts do you anticipate in the Philadelphia area real estate market, especially concerning the role of technology or the needs of family focused buyers?
Yeah. So I mean, shifts. I'm not expecting personally. I'm not predicting any kind of shift this year. I think this year, 2026, is going to look a lot like 2025, with hopefully some rising inventories and some interest rates declining slightly. I don't think there's going to be a huge decline. I mean, the real estate market is like any market. It's going to perform better the less we mess with it. So as long as we don't have any curveballs thrown at us, as far as regulations go, any novel ideas like a 50-year mortgage or anything like that, I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to see any major shifts. But that's good news. I think what people are hungry for is some normalcy. We don't want any violent swings. We want a nice balanced market. We've had a very lopsided seller's market with low inventory, and that's been true across the board, coast to coast generally. But in my area, we're in a pocket, because even outside of where I am, if you look at, outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs, things have been more balanced for a longer period of time. We're still looking at, like, right now, I have in my market, when I look, say 19426, which is Collegeville, we have less than 2 months worth of inventory.
Uh-huh.
That's like as strong a seller's market as you can get, which is not typical of the surrounding areas. It's a little bit higher, but I think, long story short, I think you'll see interest rates come down a little bit. Like where they are now is like high fives, low sixes, I think is good for a lot of people. And I think you'll see an increase in inventory as a result of that. Not a huge increase, but just enough to give us some breathing room and make it feel like a little bit more of a balanced market. Now, that being said, I've had some recent experience, and this is just anecdotal, but I have first time home buyers I'm working with right now, who in the last 2 weeks, we made 2 offers, and strong offers. I mean, significantly over asking price.
Uh-huh.
And we've been out competed both times.
Really?
Most recently, the property had 10 plus offers, and it went it's a $400,000 house, and the winning offer was 470 something with waived inspections and all cash, that kind of thing. So that kind of stuff is still happening, especially in those price ranges where a lot of first time buyers are looking. So I think the key there is just knowing that if you hang in there and you continue to make smart and strong offers, and dragging your feet to come to the table, we're going to find the right one, because it's easy to get discouraged when that
Yeah.
happens a few
Yep.
times, but it's definitely not like it was 2-3 years ago,
Yeah.
where you have to be prepared to do what I just described in every transaction, because for the most part, last year my buyers did pretty well. I would say I
Yeah.
was pretty happy because I had about an even number of buyers and sellers, and generally the sellers did well, got more than they were looking for, and the buyers got better deals than they were expecting, which I'm grateful for because I feel like my skills are being kind of put to good use there.
Yeah, I can see that. It can be a bit of a long game right now, but you have to be aggressive enough to jump on those opportunities too when they do
Yeah,
show up. And sometimes, like you said, you've got to really compete a little bit there too. So,
sure.
well, John, this conversation's been incredibly insightful, showcasing your extensive background in leadership and your unwavering commitment to customer service. Your North Fork experience offers powerful lessons on building trust and exceeding expectations. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Thanks, Kirk. I appreciate the time.
Before we wrap up, for our listeners in the Collegeville area, Wayne, and surrounding areas who are looking for a trusted real estate agent dedicated to exceptional service, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and learn more about your services at Keller Williams?
Absolutely. For number one, my website, speaktojohn.com, is easy to remember, speaktojohn.com. And then you could also reach me by phone. So I'll give you two numbers there. So my office number is 610-792-5900. And then my mobile is 215-341-9212.
Fantastic. We'll make sure we include those details in the show notes for easy access. That's all for this episode of North Fork Experience. A huge thank you again to our incredible guest, John Cornely. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep experiencing all that our communities have to offer. Thank you.